It seems as if every few years a new chapter in the development of artificial intelligence brings around a fresh round of optimism and terror. The work of Alan Turing first brought the concept of AI to the general public, and that was way back in the early 1950s. And since then, the theory has been waiting for the tech to catch up. Elements of AI have been quietly introduced into the background of our daily lives over the decades, helping to refine industrial processes or sell us products with tightly targeted online ads. But the enormous potential of GPT-4 caught the popular imagination in 2023 with its ability to generate texts in a range of styles in response to written prompts. There was a lot of excitement about the time-saving aspects of this tool. It could take on the heavy lifting of summarizing reports, collating legal documents for court cases, or writing that school essay that's due tomorrow. But many expressed concern about the coming wave of easy-to-use AI tools, and these include deepfake videos, voice cloning, image generation, and there have been concerns about the jobs that might be lost and the ease with which bad actors could produce highly convincing misinformation. And in a year coming up full of elections, the risks that AI could pose to democracy itself. So was 2023 the year of AI? Will we still be obsessed with it next year? Or will it just fade back into the background? And what does any of this have to do with the UN? Well, I'm hoping that the person who's with me today can answer some of those questions. She is Carme Artigas, until recently Spain's first ever Secretary of State for Digitalization and AI. And she's also the co-chair of the first report from the UN's AI advisory body, which is entitled Governing AI for Humanity. So thank you, Carme, for being here today. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Well, like I said, you've kind of had a foot in both camps, in the private sector and in government. So you, I guess, have a really good overview of what politicians know about this now, about where regulation is, and also what this means for industry. And we saw a lot of signs that governments are taking regulation of AI much more seriously this year. Things like the G7 Hiroshima process, which kicked off in May, the AI Safety Summit in the UK in November. And then in October, the AI Advisory Board, which you joined alongside yourself, some of the brightest minds on AI from across the world. So, well, why was the body set up, first of all? And why, after all these other initiatives that are going on, why was it important that the UN be involved in this process?
Yeah, first of all, you have just explained it very well at the very beginning of your introduction. AI is posing new threats, new opportunities, but it's not yet another technology. It has some elements that make it different. And as I mentioned, I have been living the early, the nascent internet era, then the big data era, also the machine learning, the deep learning. And why is this different? And I think what AI currently makes this not another wave of technology development or software development is because there are two things here. First of all, is the first technology that can continue evolving without human agency. And second, it's not only a technology that is affecting productivity, automation of processes, but it is interwoven into the social fabric. It affects not only the economy, not only the production, it affects also the society and the role of human beings in this digital world. So the first time ever, we're questioning who are we in this digital world. We didn't question ourselves when there was any other technology before. Why are we questioning this? Because it's something that can replace us in some important things like decision making, because it is affecting the way we see reality. It is because it can generate some problems of trust that is affecting the way we are, understanding if something is written by a machine or a human being, and we cannot tell the difference, we are going to be in a very confusing world. So this is why this makes a lot of elements that make us think about a different way to govern this technology. So until now, there was only this concern at a very low level. Especially in Europe, we were concerned about the impact of AI at the social level, not only on the technical point of view, on the safety around product, for example. And it has been until ChatGPT that there has not been this, I would call it the eureka moment or the awakening moment, saying, oh my God, this is a technology that without any human control, either in the hands of the bad people that can have a misuse, we cannot control, this has an enormous impact, but also it affects our society. And this is why we need some kind of global regulation. As you mentioned, there have been other attempts. We can get into depth on this, but it was necessary that at UN level, we're not only looking for the future outcomes, the future impact, but also the existing impact. The risk we have that AI generates a new divide between the global north and the global south, because all these discussions so far have been only taking place by few companies, few governments, all of them in the global north.
I remember when the advisory board was set up, there was a press conference, and one of the journalists who were there asked, "Do you guys talk to each other? Because there were so many of you, and you're all involved in different aspects of AI." And I think the point you were trying to make was, how is it possible that you can all get together and come up with something cohesive in such a, as you say, an existentially worrying area with so many aspects to it? So what's the answer to that? Did you manage to pull things together in this report? And are you all on the same page? All, how many, 38 of you, or however many it is?
It was definitely a challenge, but it was because some other initiatives had already taken place. You have just mentioned the G7 Hiroshima Declaration, the AI Safety Summit in Bletchley Park Declaration, the Executive Order for Biden, our Charter of Digital Rights in Spain, the European AI Act, also in China some regulation around deepfakes, also in South Korea on metaverse, in India. That was the point of time when we said, oh my God, we don't need yet another forum, yet another conference, yet another declaration. We need to converge. We need to converge on a common basis of why this requires a global governance, what are we going to govern, and how are we going to govern. So the first attempt led by the US Secretary General that launched this challenge to the UN Tech Envoy, building up this body of experts from South, North, private sector, public sector, many different sensitivities, try to reflect the complexity of the moment we're living in. And this is why the important thing now was, why don't we come to a consensus based on scientific evidence, but also gathering a global consensus on, first of all, why is this important? What are the opportunities that AI is bringing to us? Because we are now, talking only about the threats. But why are we doing this? We're doing this because it has a lot of opportunities. It has a lot of benefits. We saw that also last year in the event on SDGs. All the discussion was about how AI and SDGs can complement each other. How can we using artificial intelligence to be better than the human intelligence that has only managed to progress 16% of an SDG. So probably with a little help of AI, probably we can do it even better. So all these discussions were important. And the UN is the unique authoritative entity at the global level that has the capacity to gather all these visions. So the attempt of this recommendation was aligned on the benefits, the opportunities, the enablers that we need, not to generate an AI divide, and have this opportunity beneficial for all humanity, without hampering innovation, but also not putting into risk, for example, fundamental human rights. That's something that can be into risk if we are not paying enough attention. The other is, what are the threats? And how are we going to mitigate them? How are we going to prevent them? Because there are things that need to be mitigated, but there are things that must be prevented. We must prevent discrimination. We must prevent, misinformation and these sorts of things that we are having as present threats. And the other question, which is more difficult to get the consensus, is on how. And we have just come to the conclusion there are some basic principles of governance, and there are different ways to approach those principles. But we are all aligned in that this must be under the UN chapter, respectful with international human rights, and also for SDGs. And I think that's enough substance as a basis for this initial recommendation that we expect to be a part of the public consultation. And therefore, these initial ideas, I'm sure, are going to be enriched by this process so that we can end up with a formal recommendation by June, July in the Digital Global Compact.
Okay, so as you said, there are lots of benefits, potential benefits, but also huge potential risks. We'll come to the benefits in just a moment, but one thing that was noticeable this year was that there were some of the most foremost experts on AI calling for a pause or even a halt in AI research until we can get this global governance widely agreed. Are they right, or is the cat out of the bag now? Is AI development just something we're going to have to live with and hope we can make the most of the benefits and minimize the risks?
I think it's a little bit naive asking for pausing innovation, pausing science, and pausing research. I mean, who is going to halt? The idea is, I think that we should not halt innovation and research. We should accelerate it. We must accelerate to find the solutions that technology has created itself. And this is where there are different ways of saying it. On the industry side, when everybody realized that the potential harm that has impact in existential risk also for the humankind are not only long-term, because this is preventing us to see the problems we already have nowadays, which is misinformation, intervention on democratic processes. And this is going to be a year of 60 or 70 elections worldwide. I always say that the existential risk is not that there is an Armageddon-like robot powered by AI that's going to kill us all. The real existential risk is that we all become mad, because we all become insane, because we cannot believe what we see, we can't believe what we listen to, we cannot believe what we are reading. So the important thing is to generate trust and to understand how to manage with this and put limits. Some of the limits will come from the industry self-regulation, and that has been the initial approach. I've never seen in my life such a commitment from the industry to self-regulate itself. That's so valuable, but it's not enough. There are things that we cannot expect the technology to solve. And in the meanwhile, we either consider them prohibited practices, as we are doing in Europe, for example, with the AI Act, when we clearly say, even though this is technically possible, we don't want AI to be used for this. And that can change from country to country, because probably we have different principles and values, but there must be some important principles and limits that we can say we don't want this to happen. And this is important, that this consensus is gained at a global level.
Do you sense that we're near that consensus? Are you seeing, we are talking to people, are they all worried about the same things? Are they all committed to actually limiting the actions of these bad actors?
At the end of the day, technology is developed by human beings. We can just unplug, we can put the limits. So we are technically solving some safety issues that were raised already in the Ventile Declaration to not only prevent unintended misuse. There are intended misuses by bad actors that probably needs some kind of regulation. And one of the roles of this UN body should be align different regulations that are happening in different places of the planet. But there are some unintended misuses that have to do with how can we control the technology. So this is good. But even in that case, there are some things that we must prevent from happening. It's just not waiting until technology solves its own problem. And see, that's the area where now the discussion gets in. So the technology will evolve. I always say, for example, that, in Spain, if you are sending a WhatsApp of a private picture of me to 50 friends without my consent, that is something that is a penalty. I'm not expecting that WhatsApp is defining the next version, preventing this from happening. There will be always bad actors. We can, of course, if there is a technology way to prevent it from happening, that will make our life easier. But there are things that cannot be prevented technically, and simply we must say, we don't want this to happen. Also, we need to be very responsible on the sustainability of these technologies. And even though we are thinking this is a never-ending hype, that we are going to issue the next version of GPT-4, 5, 6, 7 every 3 months, that will not happen, because we are also need to face a scarcity of critical materials, a scarcity of critical resources, and that can also be harmful in the divide between global north and global south, or in the geopolitics of technology. So technology is playing a very important role in geopolitics these days, accessing to unique capacities, materials, processing power. So one of the topics we're trying to focus here is how can we allow for universal accessibility of data, computer power, digital skills, to allow for a more even and distributed development of AI for good. And we are now focusing on this. How can we use AI for good? And so I think that the threats are already identified. Some of them can be solved be solved technically. Some of them can be solved with international standards. Here, like institutions like the ITU from United Nations can play an important role. There are some uses that probably should be in the field of safety, like the UN Security Council needs to govern and revisit some of the limitations based on the autonomous weapons led by AI. So it's certainly that not everything is new. Existing international bodies will have to revisit their roles, their functions, with the emergency of AI. But there are some functions that are not covered anywhere. And these are this need for international coordination, international standards, rapid response and emergency response. And that is the area we're trying to focus on. The gaps, the governance gaps that exist with the existing bodies that are already in place.
Okay, well, let's assume you're successful. Let's assume that we have this framework in place that we all agree on. Somehow we managed to reach consensus. Give me the positive spin on the use of AI. You said that there are lots of benefits. Can you just give me 3 really strong benefits of AI? It could be in industrial, it could be in human rights, it could be in society, whatever you want. But just kind of sell the idea of a world in which we're all using AI tools.
I think the AI is a very important tool for democratizing access to knowledge. So just preventing gaps of access in education, personalized education. At the end of the day, we are like putting all the knowledge that the human being has created very accessible to anyone in a very human, natural language. And that's so important. I think it will have a tremendous impact in healthcare, in preventive diseases, in personalized diagnosis, and making this access to human health care in a very in cheapest ways. I mean, more accessible in terms of costs. I think it's going to be tremendously efficient with SDGs. So reducing poverty, allowing for accessibility, climate change. So all these, I would say, global challenges that we have today and that humanity has had limits to be able to solve by itself, I think AI can be a very powerful tool for that. Also for transparency, for example, efficiency in the governance of organizations, even inside the UN. One of the important challenges we are putting in this body is how AI can help the UN itself to be more efficiency in monitoring, in reporting, in sharing best practices. So I think there are a lot of opportunities. I think we must also build on the existing success stories like for example, digital public infrastructure, digital public goods initiatives, so that all this technology can also be deployed in open source. And I really think that we're going to see a lot of efficiency also in the operational efficiency in industries, that at the same time, this level of automation can lead to challenges in terms of job creation or new profiles or new skills. What it is true is that we need to be aware of these opportunities to allow for these enablers to be broadly accessible and not having this divide. And certainly there are some cross-cutting topics that we are also approaching, that is how it's going to impact the future of work, for example. How is this going to impact education? Because certainly we need to teach our children different abilities, different skills in this world. So I think that we cannot even imagine the benefits, but I'm convinced that these benefits will be will supersede the risks.
Well, when you were a politician, you were trying to put some of these ideas into practice. You were Secretary of State for Digitalization and AI. You brought in Spain's national strategy for AI, National Plan for Digital Skills, Spain Charter of Digital Rights. I'm sure there are many more as well. But you already had a lot of knowledge about AI before you were brought into government. But when you were talking to counterparts in your country and elsewhere in Europe and beyond, did you get a sense that any of them have the same level of knowledge that you have and have the capabilities to be able to put similar plans into place in their countries, or are they not really there yet?
No, they are. When we developed the national strategy on AI in 2019, we were not the first country in Europe. There were already there. And however, since this is changing so much every 6 months, there were new challenges that we were able to approach, like just the challenge on the future of artificial intelligence, quantum computing, neurotechnologies, synthetic biology, for example. There are some initiatives around this. And I think we were really the first country in putting the focus on the digital rights, on the human rights in the digital world. So what are the things that we need to revisit? What are the things that are already rights in the offline world that need to be reconsidered in the digital world, like the right, for example, not to be discriminated by an algorithm, for example, the right for a second human opinion, the right not to be altered on our will by non-invasive neurotechnologies, the right for algorithm transparency between the employers and employees. So all these challenges were put into the discussion. And we are also having launched important debates about, for example, sustainability of artificial intelligence, like the National Plan for Green Algorithms. So currently, the way AI is being developed is not sustainable environmentally. So the large language models are consuming tremendous amounts of computing power, tremendous amounts of water and energy consumptions that are not sustainable. So we need to invest also in making those technologies more efficient from the sustainable point of view. But that awareness was very important in all the work that we did, and precisely we had the chance to lead during our presidency of Spain as presidency of the Council of the European Union, which has been the AI Act. Because as you know, it is the first piece of legislation, which is an international legislation, which is, putting the emphasis not only on the features, but also on the fundamental rights. That the equivalent will be the human rights chapter of the United Nations. But I think that is the first attempt to have a regulation. We are regulating things like intellectual property use when training these models. We are putting a category of prohibited uses of AI. We're putting the category of high-risk uses of AI. And that challenge there was, how can we make compatible technology development, protection of fundamental rights, without hampering innovation? And that was the different forces, geopolitical forces, of course, lobbies and so on, were so important in this process. And I think we have managed to get the right balance between protection and innovation ex ante and ex post. And I think even though that's something that probably it makes sense under the context of the European Union, I think it also paves the way towards a more broader reflection on these topics also at a global level.
Well, let's just take you back to the near future, because we said we'd take a look forward to 2024, which, and you mentioned it earlier, it's this bumper election year, around 50 elections taking place around the world. And a little earlier in December, Melissa Fleming, the head of communications at the UN, told a meeting of Security Council members that the advent of generative AI means the online environment is about to get even worse, undermining public trust in news and information sources, which is not really what you want to hear when you have so many elections coming up. It's very likely that AI tools will be used to try to influence elections, assisting the spread of lies, rumors, conspiracy theories. And I say that because we've seen this already. Is this a big source of concern for you, or is it the fact that we're talking about this a sign that we're gearing up to tackle this threat?
Yes, I was very much concerned 1 year ago, 2 years ago, when we were the only voices saying, okay, beware of this. I mean, we have been talking about misinformation a lot since the digital platforms were in. We have done nothing. And this is why, thanks to, I would say, the eureka moment of generative AI, that everybody has seen, oh my God, this is pervasive. Oh, this is here. This is for free. This is affecting everything. We need to put some limits on it. And this is why I was saying it is important for me that, for example, at European level, we say everything that has been generated by AI must be marked as generated by AI. So we know if something has been generated, your podcast, your image, your article is generated by a human or not AI, which doesn't mean it is bad. Probably I like to read the news generated by an AI tool because they are more precise and even with in a language that I understand much better. But I need to know. And it is important that we are aware of the interrelation between hybrid attacks, between cybersecurity and misinformation. They are interlinked. This is posing important threats worldwide. But we are now concerned We are now concerned, and we were not concerned 2 years ago. And the fact that we have just raised the conversation at a global level gives me a lot of hope, because one of the things we must build is trust. Because without trust, this will never be developed. Without trust, we are not going to buy a product developed by AI, because I'm not protected as consumer even. I'm not protected. It's like launching a pharmaceutical drug without any clinical trial. It's like launching a car without brakes or airbags. So we will never accept a consumer product that has not had any certificate of safety control, or in this particular case, transparency. I think one of the advantages of AI is transparency. So we, as from NGOs, public civil organizations, we can ask for transparency, because there is a technical way to tell me, how have you made this decision? What is the data, the evidence, the scientific information you have taken to make that decision, to put this nuclear plant here or this school here? Why have you taken that decision? So we are also having the capacity, as we had never had before, because all the decisions taken by companies or by governmental bodies are unknown, are coming from a black box. Now we also have the power to ask for transparency. So we should ask for transparency. Also, in the way some decisions are made, in the way the news are publishing some information. And I think that the news have a very important role here. They must recover their role as the fourth power. For that, they must be profitable, because if they are not profitable, they cannot be independent. But we need them more than ever. And I think, for example, that there are a lot of ways we can verify news. And that's something that the serious media should do. I mean, even though you can have different opinions, but we cannot, sell as a fake news something which is not a news. Because the idea of fake news is not selling a different reality. It's just generating uncertainty, generating lack of trust. So I think that is a threat of today's environment. But we are aware, since we are aware, there are technical ways to prevent it, and there is a responsibility we must take from the media, from the public bodies, and also from the civil society. So I'm more confident than ever because we are aware of this.
So in the words that I'm seeing a lot, you're more of a boomer than a doomer.
I don't know how this exactly translates to my language, but I think I got the message. I don't know.
So more of an optimist than a pessimist.
Yes, I always. I'm an optimist. Otherwise, I wouldn't be in technology, wouldn't be in innovation, and I wouldn't be an entrepreneur. I mean, to be an entrepreneur these days is to be optimistic. But you have grounds for optimism. I think so.
And before you go, one more thing. How do you use AI in your own life?
I think we're surrounded by AI. I mean, every single app we're doing to do a job. And usually I'm getting used to use these large language models now to structure the content, not generating content, but to structure the content. It's like having an assistant that is helping you organize all the information in a much more effective way. So you can really provide the knowledge you have, the differential factor that you have as human being, no? And I think that's where these tools are useful. I think they are useful as we say, co-pilots. So helping you enhance your own possibilities and creativity. But I think there's a lot of room for improvement and for learning. So now I have more time on my free time. There's a step. I'm here. This is the very last day in my job here. Today I'm no longer Secretary of State, but just I came here as my day in office. So I hope I have more time in the following months, apart from the joy of collaborating with the UN advisory body that we'll keep on doing the following months, to really get into deep dive all these technologies and see all its potential.
And your work will be culminating next September, of course, when your final report is out, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you and your colleagues again then. Carme Artigas, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Just an important message. I think this interim report we issued just 1 week ago pretends to be the launch of a collaborative process at a global level to discuss on these topics. We don't pretend to have all the answers. We're just posing the challenges, making the right questions. It's important to make the right questions. And I think that the result of this can be a way in which we all agree we need to govern AI globally, whatever works. We don't need to fix off model A, B, or C. We need to find alternatives to have this consensus. And I think this is going to be very challenging work. I think we are putting the conversation now where nobody was talking about this some months ago. And this is why I trust on the important role of the UN to guide this conversation and come this global consensus.
I hope so, yes. Thank you very much.